Welcome back to our channel, where we bring you the most in-depth analysis and thrilling updates from your favorite daytime dramas. Today is a fantastic day to dive into the explosive dynamics currently rocking Los Angeles, as the tension that has been simmering beneath the surface finally erupts into an unforgettable spectacle. The hallowed halls of Forrester Creations have seen their fair share of scandal, heartbreak, and corporate espionage over the decades, but nothing could have prepared the legendary fashion house for the sheer brutality of the storm that just made landfall. The simmering, toxic rivalry between Will Spencer and R.J. Forrester has officially crossed the point of no return, transforming a battle of words and romantic jealousy into a visceral, bloody confrontation that threatens to tear two legacy families apart. To understand the sheer magnitude of the violence that just erupted in the design office, we must first look at the immense pressure cooker that has been slowly boiling over the past several weeks. The atmosphere at Forrester Creations has been nothing short of suffocating. R.J. Forrester has been walking a dangerous tightrope of paranoia, entitlement, and deep-seated jealousy. He has watched his family's legacy be challenged by the monumental global success of Katie Logan Spencer and Bill Spencer's newly launched fashion line, a brand built on the stolen genius of Eric Forrester's designs. This corporate humiliation has eaten away at RJ's pride. Simultaneously, he has found himself entangled in a messy, high-stakes romantic quadrangle. With Ivy Forrester's manipulative schemes finally exposed and Electra Forrester's heart torn between her lingering love for Will and her undeniable new attraction to RJ, the young Forrester heir has felt an overwhelming need to assert his dominance. He has convinced himself that Will is not just a romantic rival, but a corporate spy funneling Forrester secrets to the Logan brand. On the other side of this volatile equation stands Will Spencer. Will has been desperately trying to navigate the chaotic fallout of Ivy's deceit, attempting to rebuild his shattered relationship with Electra while simultaneously fending off RJ's relentless accusations. Will has tried to maintain the composed, calculating demeanor of a true Spencer, reminding RJ that he isn't even a real Forrester by blood. However, beneath that cool exterior, Will has been harboring a protective instinct, particularly toward Melissa Dillon. Dillon, who has been caught in the crossfire of this corporate and romantic warfare, has been a lingering source of guilt and affection for Will. The catalyst for this ultimate destruction was none other than Melissa Dillon herself. Dillon has been carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. She has been a victim of relentless pressure from RJ, who has leveraged his power as the boss's son to force her into a toxic alliance. Furthermore, she has been haunted by a mysterious, disguised caller claiming they have unfinished business, sparking terrifying rumors about her potential involvement in the tragic death of Luna Nozawa. Dillon's vulnerability made her the perfect target for RJ's mounting frustrations. The confrontation began in the main design office, a room usually reserved for creative genius and the crafting of beauty. RJ, fueled by a toxic cocktail of entitlement and rage, cornered Dillon. He abandoned all pretense of professionalism and launched a vicious, deeply personal psychological attack. RJ decided to hit Dillon where it hurt the most, weaponizing the dark rumors swirling around her past. With eyes full of venom, RJ crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. He looked directly into Dillon's terrified eyes and branded her a murderer, explicitly tying her to the tragedy of Luna Nozawa. As if that horrific accusation were not enough to break her spirit, he spat out the word trash, entirely degrading her humanity and dismissing her as nothing more than garbage polluting his family's company. The words murderer and trash echoed off the walls of the design room, hanging in the air like a poisonous cloud. Melissa Dillon froze, the color completely draining from her face. The sheer cruelty of RJ's verbal assault paralyzed her, triggering a flood of traumatic memories and amplifying her profound guilt. She felt the walls closing in, the oppressive weight of the Forrester legacy crushing her fragile spirit. But she was not the only one who heard those devastating words. While Spencer had been approaching the office, intending to finally clear the air regarding the ongoing corporate espionage accusations. Instead, he walked into a nightmare. Hearing the woman he still deeply cares for being verbally decimated, being called a murderer and trash by a man he already despised, triggered a primal, uncontrollable rage within Will. The composed, strategic Spencer air vanished in an instant, replaced by a furious protector who had reached his absolute breaking point. The physical altercation that followed was not a mere scuffle or a brief shoving match. It was a brutal, unhinged display of pure hatred. Will lost all control. He charged into the room and tackled RJ with the devastating force of a freight train. The impact sent both men crashing into a drafting table, shattering the expensive wood and sending sketches, fabric swatches, and design tools flying into the air. The sound of breaking furniture was immediately followed by the sickening thud of fists connecting with bone. RJ, fighting with the desperate, wild energy of a cornered animal, fought back fiercely. He managed to land several punishing blows to Will's jaw, his rings cutting into Will's skin. But Will was operating on pure adrenaline and righteous fury. He grabbed RJ by the collar of his expensive designer shirt, tearing the fabric, and slammed him against the glass partition of the office. The glass spiderwebbed under the immense pressure, a perfect visual metaphor for the shattering of the Forster-Spencer truce. The destruction of the design room was absolute. Mannequins were toppled, their pristine garments stained with the blood that now dripped from both men's faces. They rolled across the floor, knocking over racks of couture, each punch fueled by weeks of suppressed jealousy, corporate paranoia, and romantic betrayal. Will's knuckles were bruised and bleeding, yet he did not stop. He wanted to punish RJ for every ounce of pain he had inflicted on Dylan and Electra. RJ, his face rapidly swelling and his lip busted open, refused to yield, his Forster pride demanding that he conquer the Spencer invader. Both men were inflicting severe, potentially lasting physical damage upon one another. The intervention came not a moment too soon, though the damage was already catastrophically done. Ridge Forster and Katie Logan Spencer, who had been in a nearby boardroom engaged in their own bitter dispute over the Logan brand's use of Eric's designs, heard the terrifying crash of glass and the shouts of the combatants. They rushed into the design room, stopping dead in their tracks at the horrifying scene before them. The pristine sanctuary of Forster Creations had been turned into a gladiator's arena. Ridge, his paternal instincts and fierce temper flaring, lunged forward to pull the men apart. Katie, horrified by the sheer violence, rushed to assist. It took the combined, desperate strength of both Ridge and Katie to finally separate the two young men. Will was breathing heavily, his eyes still locked onto RJ with murderous intent, while RJ spat blood onto the ruined carpet, a defiant, ugly sneer still plastered on his battered face. The immediate aftermath was a gruesome tableau. Both Will and RJ were severely injured, their faces a canvas of dark bruises, deep cuts, and swelling tissue. Ridge's fury was palpable. He looked at Will with absolute disgust, viewing this savage attack as the ultimate disrespect to his family's home. Katie, meanwhile, was horrified by Will's loss of control, but immediately shifted into a defensive posture, recognizing that RJ must have provoked him to elicit such a violent reaction. The room was thick with the promise of retribution. However, in the modern age of smartphones and instant communication, a scandal of this magnitude cannot be contained within four walls. The noise of the brawl had attracted a crowd of employees, and within minutes, the media explosion began. Anonymous tips, leaked photographs of the destroyed office, and sensationalized accounts of the bloody fight spread like wildfire across gossip blogs and news networks. The scandal became a massive media sensation, instantly threatening to overshadow the triumphant global launch of Katie and Bill's fashion line, while simultaneously dragging the prestigious Forster name through the mud. Stock prices wavered, PR teams scrambled, and the public feasted on the dramatic downfall of Los Angeles' elite. In the quiet, devastating solitude of her own despair, Melissa Dillon watched the fallout with a shattered heart. She felt an overwhelming, crushing sense of guilt. In her mind, she was the poison that had infected these two powerful families. She believed that her presence, her complicated past, and her inability to navigate the treacherous waters of the Forrester-Spencer rivalry were the direct causes of this monumental war. She saw the blood on Will's face and the hatred in RJ's eyes, and she blamed herself entirely. The psychological toll of being called a murderer, combined with the reality of the violence committed in her name, pushed Dillon to a desperate resolution. Driven by a profound need to fix the unfixable and to protect Will from further destruction, Dillon decided she had to take matters into her own hands. She resolved to confront RJ directly, hoping to appeal to whatever shred of humanity he had left. She wanted to beg him to end the hostilities, to stop the corporate espionage accusations, and to leave Will alone. She was willing to sacrifice her own dignity, and perhaps even her career, to ensure that the man she cared for would not lose everything because of her. Dillon's walk to RJ's office felt like a march to the executioner's block. When she entered, she found RJ nursing his bruised face with an ice pack, his ego shattered, but his vindictive spirit burning brighter than ever. RJ did not look at her with pity or remorse. He looked at her like a predator examining wounded prey. He knew exactly why she had come, and he was already 10 steps ahead of her. The confrontation between Dillon and RJ was a chilling masterclass in psychological manipulation. Dillon pleaded with him, her voice trembling with emotion. She took full responsibility for the tension, begging RJ to let the feud die and to stop dragging Will through the mud. But RJ was not interested in peace. He was interested in total annihilation. He began to subtly steer the conversation, using his sharp intellect to back Dillon into a conversational corner. He feigned a moment of vulnerability, pretending to understand her guilt, only to twist the knife deeper. RJ methodically pushed Dillon on the topic of her past, bringing up the mysterious phone calls and the dark rumors surrounding Luna Nozawa. He applied just enough pressure, mixing false empathy with veiled threats, to make Dillon crack. Exhausted, traumatized, and desperate to appease him, Dillon's defensive walls crumbled. In a moment of sheer emotional exhaustion, she slipped up. She let slip a crucial, devastating detail about her past and her connection to the tragic events surrounding Luna Nozawa, a detail that could easily be construed as an admission of severe guilt or complicity. Unbeknownst to Dillon, the red light of a recording app was glowing softly on RJ's smartphone, which lay seemingly innocuous on his desk. RJ had anticipated her arrival and had set a trap. He secretly recorded every single word of her desperate confession, capturing her ho-hen, slip of the tongue, in crystal-clear audio. As Dillon left the office, believing she had made a tragic but necessary sacrifice to calm the waters, RJ sat alone in the dim light, a bruised but triumphant smile spreading across his face. RJ's malicious intent was clear. He did not just want to destroy Dillon. She was merely collateral damage. His ultimate goal was to use this explosive recording to completely ruin Will Spencer. By proving that Will was protecting a criminal, or by implicating the Spencer family in a massive cover-up, RJ knew he could destroy Will's reputation, his standing in the business world, and his chances with Elektra forever. The implications of this secret recording are apocalyptic. This cat-and-mouse game has now transcended personal vendettas and office politics. RJ's possession of this audio file is the spark that will ignite an endless, vicious legal war between the Forresters and the Spencers. Blackmail, extortion, and the threat of criminal prosecution now hang over everyone's heads. Bill Spencer will undoubtedly unleash his full, ruthless power to protect his son and destroy RJ, while Ridge will stop at nothing to defend his heir and the Forrester legacy. As the battle lines are drawn and the lawyers are summoned, Melissa Dillon remains unaware that her attempt to play the peacemaker has just handed the enemy the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. The blood spilled in the design room was only the beginning. The true war, fought in courtrooms and boardroom shadows, is about to begin, and it promises to leave no one unscathed. The sterile, suffocating walls of medical clinics and the crushing disappointment of negative pregnancy tests have become an agonizing routine for Carter Walton and Daphne Rose Walton. For months, the audience has watched this deeply devoted couple navigate the heartbreaking labyrinth of infertility, a journey fraught with silent tears, whispered prayers, and an overwhelming sense of despair. Daphne has been pushed to the absolute brink, her emotional and physical reserves depleted by the relentless cycle of hope and devastation. Every failed attempt to conceive has felt like a personal failure, a cruel betrayal by her own body. Through it all, Carter has stood by her side as an unwavering pillar of strength, offering endless reassurance and researching alternative paths to parenthood, such as surrogacy and adoption. They believe that as long as they faced this devastating storm together, their marriage could withstand any obstacle the universe threw their way. However, the universe has a particularly ruthless sense of humor, and the foundation of their seemingly unbreakable bond is about to be shattered by an unforeseen tempest from Carter's hidden past. Just as the couple reaches the absolute nadir of their desperation regarding their family planning, the atmosphere in Los Angeles shifts dramatically with the sudden, unannounced arrival of a mysterious woman. This stranger does not merely walk into their lives. She crashes into their fragile reality like a cataclysmic force of nature, bringing with her a revelation that stops time itself. Standing before a bewildered Carter and a deeply confused Daphne, the woman makes a declaration that sucks the oxygen straight out of the room. She claims, with unwavering certainty and chilling confidence, that she is raising Carter's biological son, a child conceived during a brief, passionate, and entirely forgotten fling from many years ago. The sheer magnitude of this statement reverberates through the space, instantly transforming their sanctuary of marital solidarity into a suffocating chamber of secrets, lies, and unimaginable shock. For Carter Walton, a man universally revered as the moral compass of the Forrester and Logan families, this revelation is nothing short of paralyzing. He is the esteemed chief operating officer of Forrester Creations, the legal mastermind who untangles the messes of others, and a loyal friend who has officiated countless weddings while preaching the virtues of honesty and integrity. Yet, in the blink of an eye, his pristine reputation and carefully constructed life are completely upended. The cognitive dissonance is staggering as he stares into the face of a young boy who bears an undeniable, haunting resemblance to him. The memories of that fleeting encounter from his distant past, a moment of loneliness or vulnerability long before Daphne ever entered his heart, suddenly rush back with devastating clarity. The realization that he is a father, that a piece of his soul has been walking the earth without his knowledge, triggers an overwhelming tidal wave of conflicting emotions, leaving him entirely speechless and fundamentally broken. If the revelation is a profound shock to Carter, it is an absolute, soul-crushing tragedy for Daphne. She stands frozen, a silent witness to the sudden materialization of her husband's secret past. The betrayal she feels in that agonizing moment is multifaceted and profoundly deep. It is not merely the existence of the child that shatters her heart. It is the agonizing realization that Carter kept this chapter of his life entirely concealed from her. In a marriage built on the sacred promise of absolute transparency, this omission feels like a deliberate, unforgivable lie. Daphne's mind races, replaying every intimate conversation they shared about their pasts, every vulnerable moment where they promised each other there were no ghosts in their closets. The sudden realization that she does not entirely know the man she married sends a violent tremor through her core, fracturing the deep trust that has always anchored her soul. The psychological cruelty of this specific situation cannot be overstated. For months, Daphne has been torturing herself over her inability to give Carter the child he so desperately desires. She has endured the invasive medical procedures, the hormonal tempests, and the quiet agony of feeling physically inadequate. Now, she is forced to stare directly into the eyes of a living, breathing testament to another woman's biological success. The universe has delivered a cruel and twisted irony. The child Carter has been yearning for already exists, but he belongs to a stranger. The visceral jealousy and profound sense of inadequacy that wash over Daphne are suffocating. She looks at the mysterious woman and sees everything she currently is not. A mother, a life giver, the source of Carter's ultimate dream. This agonizing juxtaposition plunges Daphne into a dark abyss of self-doubt and agonizing alienation. Adding a terrifying layer of complexity to this already volatile emotional crucible is the demeanor and ultimate objective of the mysterious woman. She has not traveled to Los Angeles simply to drop off a child, collect a financial settlement, and quietly disappear into the background. No, her intentions are far more insidious and demanding. She recognizes the immense power she holds in her hands, recognizing that this young boy is her ultimate leverage over a wealthy, influential, and desperate man. With calculating precision, she begins to demand a permanent, prominent position within the Walton family dynamic. She refuses to be relegated to the shadows, insisting that if Carter wants to be a part of his son's life, she must be integrated into their daily existence. This bold, manipulative strategy instantly transforms her from a ghost of the past into an active, dangerous antagonist in Daphne's present reality. The psychological warfare waged by this woman is executed with masterclass precision. She subtly flaunts her biological connection to Carter, weaponizing shared genetic traits and the undeniable bond of parenthood to carve out a space between the married couple. Every innocent request for Carter to spend time with his son is laced with an underlying threat, a reminder that she holds the keys to the kingdom Carter has always wanted. She orchestrates situations that force Carter to choose between his responsibilities as a new father and his obligations as a devoted husband, knowing full well that Carter's innate goodness will not allow him to abandon his flesh and blood. By exploiting Carter's moral compass, she effectively traps him in an emotional vice, slowly tightening her grip on his life while systematically pushing Daphne to the absolute periphery. Caught in the terrifying crossfire of this emotional war zone is Carter, who finds himself facing an impossible, soul-destroying dilemma. The paternal instinct, lying dormant for years, has suddenly awakened with a fierce, undeniable intensity. When he looks at the young boy, he sees innocence, vulnerability, and a desperate need for a father's love. He cannot simply turn his back on his own child. To do so would violate every ethical principle he holds dear and destroy his own soul in the process. However, every step he takes toward embracing his newfound role as a father feels like a direct betrayal of his grieving wife. He watches helplessly as the light fades from Daphne's eyes, replaced by a cold, distant alienation. He is trapped in a labyrinth with no exit, paralyzed by the terrifying realization that saving his relationship with his son might require sacrificing the love of his life. The atmosphere within the Walton household rapidly deteriorates, transforming their once warm sanctuary into a chilling battleground of unspoken resentments and explosive arguments. The silence between Carter and Daphne becomes heavy, thick with the weight of the mysterious woman's constant, looming presence. Every time Carter's phone rings, Daphne flinches, anticipating another demand, another intrusion, another reminder of her husband's past. The arguments that inevitably erupt are not merely about scheduling or boundaries. They're deeply rooted in Daphne's fundamental fear of replacement and Carter's desperate, agonizing attempt